How's it hanging, YouTube? This is King of Imps, and today I've got an updated Monarch deck profile. Now, it's been a while, but Monarchs are still alright. I'm actually recording this right after the brand new ban list has dropped, but nothing is affected in the deck, and sadly nothing has been added to the deck from the ban list, but I'm just going to go ahead and begin starting off with the monsters with one Aether the Heavenly Monarch. Now, like I said, nothing was added, so sadly this is still at 1, but I guess it makes some sense. So both of the big monarchs in the deck, they have the ability that you can go ahead and tribute summon them by tributing one tribute summon monster. And when it is tribute summon, you can go ahead and send 2 monarch spell or trap cards from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and then you get to go ahead and special summon a mini monarch from the deck, but it is returned to the hand during the end phase. It also has the additional quick effect that if it's in your hand, you can go ahead and banish a monarch spell or trap card from your hand or graveyard, I believe, and then you can go ahead and immediately tribute summon this card. So that's pretty great that you can go ahead and do this. And again, it does work during your opponent's turn because it's a quick effect. Now, you only got one of those, but we got 3 of Erebus, the Underworld Monarch, which is, a pretty cool one as well. He also has the effect that you can go ahead and tribute summon him by tributing one tribute summon monster. So both of them are pretty neat in that they have the effect that you don't have to tribute summon 2 monsters always, and there are other ways in the deck to get around that. Now, his effect is that when he's tribute summon, go ahead and send 2 Monarch spell or trap cards from your hand and or deck to the graveyard, and you get to shuffle 1 card from your opponent's hand, field, or graveyard back into the deck. So this one just has some amazing spin power, and honestly, I kind of think he's a little more useful than Aether, just in that sense, just because he can go ahead and spin stuff. And then he also has the effect that if he's in the graveyard, you can banish a Monarch spell or trap card from your graveyard, and then you get to add a Monarch from your graveyard back to your hand. So, I mean, he's good with recursion. I honestly really do think Erebus is the better one in this sense. And so, now for the last of the big Monarchs that I'm playing is one Caius, the Mega Monarch. Now, he's basically just Caius with an upgraded effect. You can also go ahead and tribute summon him by tributing one tribute summon monster. That is always a mouthful to say, but Caius' effect is basically the same thing. Go ahead and banish 1 card and inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. But this one has the additional effect that if it's a dark monster, then you basically just get rid of every other dark monster, every other copy of that monster from the graveyard, and go ahead and banish it. Now, before, Caius, like the pro Caius play would be like tribute summon and then Caius banish self for game. You can still technically do that with this, I guess. But you just need to keep in mind, make sure if you're going to do that, make sure it's for game, because if you happen to banish anything that you have any other copies of, you're going to have to banish the rest of them. Now, Caius the Mega Monarch does have the additional effect that if you tribute summon him by tributing a dark monster, you get to target 2 cards instead, so that's pretty sweet. Then after one of that, I'm just playing one mini Caius or one regular Caius. Now, this really should be a Curaz or maybe 2, but for whatever reason, Curaz are hard to come by. But that's it for the big Monarchs I'm playing. Maybe you might want to mix it up. Play, I don't know. Like I said, that should be a Curaz or 2, but if you want to like mix up any of the other Monarchs, you definitely can. But that's it for the big Monarchs. Now for the smaller Monarch stuff, the Squires, I'm playing, of course, 3 Edia and 3 Eidos. Now these are extremely important in the deck. Now basically what Edia does is when it's summoned, you can summon an Eidos, and when Eidos is summoned, you get an additional normal summon. So what you're able to do is, normal summon Edia, special summon Eidos, and then you get that additional normal summon, and then you can go ahead and tribute them both for one of your big Monarchs. Now, they do have some other great additional effects that you can go ahead and activate in the grave that can go ahead and get you additional, recursion here and there, but for the most part, that's the main play. But Edios actually is, a lot more useful in the graveyard, just because you can go ahead and banish him, and then you can special summon one, you can go ahead and special summon one of the smaller one. You can go ahead and special summon another Edia. The effects are right there for you to read. I'm not going to go deep into them, especially with a lot of the other cards coming up, but that's basically it for the Monarch lineup. The big guys, and then 3 of these smaller guys. And for the last monster to help out, I'm playing 2 Vanity's Fiend, because Vanity's Fiend is just very useful in being able to stop special summons. Now you have a lot in the deck that can actually help you out with tributing this thing out, and what's great is that he actually has the same stats as like the mini Monarchs, so you can go ahead and search it out with a lot of the cards that are in the deck. And anyway, that's it for the monsters. Next up for spells, I'm playing 3 Allure of Darkness because it's at 3. There are a lot of dark monsters in the deck. The only thing that's not is the Edias and then the Aethers, which are light. But everything else you can go ahead and banish if you need to. But it's just some great draw power. And then after that is 3 Domain of the True Monarch. Now this is an extremely useful card, and this is probably what helps the deck stay relevant. Now, if you have no cards in your extra deck, and you're the only player that controls a Tribute Summon monster, then your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. It does have additional effects. It gives, like, Tribute Summon monsters extra 800 attack during the damage calculation only, and then once per turn you can go ahead and reduce the level of one of the bigger monarchs. It's by 2, so you can go ahead and tribute summon these guys for 1. Now it only works with the big ones, and then the Caius also, but it is just extremely useful. And again, it is a monarch card, so it's searchable, but the big thing is the stun power, just being able to stop the extra deck. Then after that, 3 Tenacity of the Monarchs. Now what this does is you basically reveal a monarch in your hand, and you can search for another monarch card from your deck. Now of course you can't search for a Tenacity of the Monarchs, and it does require you to have a monarch in your hand to reveal that fits the stats. But other than that, it's just a really reliable search power. And then the other really reliable search power is Return of the Monarch. I'm trying this at 3 just for the extra additional power, and again, all of the Monarch spell and trap cards are fodder for the big guys to go ahead and send to the graveyard to activate their effects. But what Return of the Monarchs basically does is that when you tribute summon any monster, you can go ahead and activate one of the effects. One of them is to add from your deck to your hand one of these small monarchs, and then the other is to add from your deck to your hand one of the big monarchs. So this just helps you with searching. Only if you tribute summon, I don't know, I might take it, I probably should take it down to 2. But again, all of the monarch stuff is just good. Good fodder. That's all for the 3-ofs. Now for the 1-ofs are Pantheism, the Monarch Storm 4th, and March of the Monarchs. Now, Pantheism and Monarch Storm 4th are both limited, which is why we're only playing 1. Now, when Pantheism is in the grave, you can go ahead and banish it to basically reveal any 3 Monarch spell or trap cards from your deck, and your opponent chooses one at random and adds it to your hand. But of course, if you have 3 copies of any of them, it's basically an auto add. Now, of course, it is banished, so, that's going to be the difficult thing. There are other things to, help you recur and everything, but that's basically why it's limited, because it helps you. It's draw power and search power. Now, Monarch Storm 4th basically lets you tribute 1 monster on your opponent's side of the field for the tribute summon of a Monarch. Now, again, it's limited, but you can search things out, or you can search it out relatively easy, and it does become very useful, especially with with the big Monarchs. Is you can go ahead and tribute 2 of your opponent. You can tribute 1 of your monsters and 1 of your opponent's monsters, or if you have things that reduce the level of 1 of your big monarchs, you can go ahead and tribute 1 of your opponent's monsters for it. And then lastly, March of the Monarchs. Now, tribute summon monsters you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and you can't special summon from the extra deck as a requirement. But you don't have an extra deck, so that's it for the Monarch cards. Now, for additional 1-ofs, there's a Foolish Burial, a Foolish Burial Goods, 1-for-1, Monster Reborn, Reinforcement, and an Upstart Goblin. Now, all of these are just additional things to help Foolish, get things in the graveyard, monsters that you can get effects off of. Foolish Burial Goods, you can go ahead and send your Pantheism, or additional Monarch spell or trap cards. 1-for-1 summons Eidos, the small guy. So what's great is, it special summons, because then you can still get the effect to summon Erebus, or not Erebus, you can summon, this summons Edia, and then you can summon Eidos, and then Eidos will get your additional normal summon, and then you basically get 2 normal summons. Monster Reborn, just very useful, and especially, if you want to take your opponent's thing, that's pretty nice. If you want to take anything to help tribute summon, that's good. Reinforcement of the Army, of course, searches Edia, and then Upstart Goblin, just additional draw power. But that's it for the spells. And lastly, for the traps are just 2 Prime Monarch and 3 the Monarch's Erupt. Now, Prime Monarch is basically a trap monster, and so it's pretty useful in that sense. It's just additional tributes that you can go ahead and bring out, and again, fodder for other stuff. And then the Monarch's Erupt is a great card. It's effectively a skill drain. You can only activate it if you have no cards in your extra deck, and if you control a tribute summon monster. You go ahead and negate the effects of face-up monsters on the field while those monsters are face-up on the field, except for tribute summoned monsters. And during your main phase, if you control no tribute summoned monsters, send this to the graveyard. So it's very reliant on you having one of your tribute summoned monsters on the field. But I mean, that's pretty good, because with your other cards, you can go ahead and protect these pretty well. And Monarchs Erupt just, again, being basically a skill drain, it is so useful. But anyway, that's it for the traps. Of course, there is no extra deck, but that is it for the main deck of Monarchs. And the main deck is all there is. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Of course, you know, you can change the build up however you want. And it's a really easy deck to build. You can probably still find the Monarch structure decks, but the recent Lair of Darkness structure deck is pretty useful for additional things, like, you know, it has Kai's the Mega Monarch, it has Allure of Darkness, and so, you know, just all good useful stuff. It's a pretty cool deck. It's sort of kind of gotten power creeped out, and especially only having one Aether, one Stormforth, and one Pantheism. It's not full power, but it's still pretty decent because this is an anti-extra deck, and as long as you're going up against something with an extra deck, you're gonna do extremely well. But of course, you know, they still have some additional power here and there against stuff that doesn't rely on the extra deck. But if you want to see more of this Monarch deck, I might do an updated version of how to play Monarchs. Maybe I'll do a live action duel. Just go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments, what you'd like to see. And if you have any suggestions, of course, because I'm not exactly a native Monarch player, but of course, any suggestions are appreciated. Anyway, if you enjoyed the content, remember to leave a like and subscribe to show your support. Enable notifications, click the bell icon, leave comments, likes, all that cool stuff, and subscribe, support your local dead Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Anyway, this has been King of Feral Imps. Have a nice day.